Hi there, this is Jenny from the Sewing Palace. I'm coming to you from my sewing room today to teach you how to make an 18-inch pillow. You're going to learn how to do piping and a zipper. Let's collect a couple of supplies. If you joined us in part 1, we made this cute little wall hanging and it's going to turn into the pillow. It's called Quilter's Gonna Stash and it's a laser cut kit that we have on our website. So you could have started with that, or you'll want to collect some fabrics that you'll want for the front of your pillow and the back. When you collect your fabrics, you'll want to have a piece that is at least 5/8 of a yard so that you can cut your squares out for your pillow front and for the back. You'll also want some other supplies. If you want to insert a zipper, which I'm going to show you today, I have zippers by the yard here. I also have some other zippers by the yard, but you'll need a zipper that is over 18.5 inches long. Then you'll need some piping if you want to learn how to do piping. This is piping or cording. Then you'll also need a presser foot to do your regular sewing with, and I've got a piping foot, which I'm going to show you here in the video shortly. You'll also want a little bit more fabric if you want to cover the piping with an accent fabric. We need to cut that fabric on the bias, so it takes a little bit more of a fabric, so you'll need about 5/8 to 3/4 of a yard for that as well. I've collected my supplies. This is going to be my pillow front, but if you're going to use your own fabrics out of your stash, I've collected a cute fabric that has things about friends and family. And so I've got a piece of fabric. I've also inserted a strip inside there, so it has a little accent. And then I have some fabric for the back, which is 2 pieces like this. So for the front, you'll want to cut a square that is 18.5 inches large. For the back, you're going to cut 2 pieces that are 18.5 by 9.5. To prepare the edges of your pillow, once you've cut your 18.5 inch piece, you can either use a zigzag stitch or an overlocker to finish the edge. I'll show you that next. What's nice about that is when you go to wash your pillow, it won't fray on the edges. This is a Bernina Overlocker and it has 4 threads in the top and 2 needles set up. So I'm set up for a 4-thread overlock. I'm going to be overlocking along the edge and barely cutting off any fabric. There's a blade on the side that goes up and down, and it's going to be running right along my cut edge of my 18.5 inch square. If I want to overlock around the edge of my Quilter's Gonna Stash, I'm going to run the blade right along the finished edge of the fabric, and I'll trim off my batting and my backing. So for my pillow front, I have either a solid fabric or I have sewn a couple of strips together, so this could be one pillow front, and then I've overlocked or zigzag stitched around the outside edge, and this measures 18.5. The other option is the Quilter's Gonna Stash, which we already have a video on how to do this, and that will also be quilted and appliqued, and then you'll sew around the edges with an overlocker or a zigzag stitch, and that will measure 18.5. So you choose your pillow front and get the edges finished, and we'll move on to the next step. The next step is covered piping. So what you'll want is some thick piping. This is cotton cording that we have at the shop, and it's probably about 1/4 inch thick. And then you'll want strips of bias fabric. So I have several strips of bias fabric. I'm going to sew those together and wrap them around the piping. Now bias fabric has stretch to it, so I'm going to show you how to cut bias next, and you'll need enough to fit around the entire circumference of the pillow. So for me, I have 4 strips that are about 18 to 20 inches long. I'm going to join them all together, so I'll sew these ends together and I'll have a big long strip that will fit around the entire pillow. Let's talk a little bit about bias strips. When you have fabric that you have purchased, this is the selvage edge of the fabric. And when you go along the selvage edge, that edge doesn't stretch very much. So along the selvage grain, that doesn't stretch very much. If you cut strips from the selvage to the other selvage, you'll have strips that stretch just a tiny bit more, so you get a little bit more stretch that direction. If you cut strips at a 45-degree angle, that's called bias, and that has a lot more stretch. So that's helpful for when you're using clothing or you need things to go around a curve. You'll need that stretch so that you can go around edges that have a little curve to them. So we're going to be adding piping, and we're going to just slightly curve the corners on the top of the pillow, all four corners. So I want a little bit of bias fabric to do that. So when I go to cut bias, I'll lay my selvage facing me and I'll open up my fabric. So I'll have a piece that's opened up, the wrong side is facing up right now. The wider this piece of fabric is, the longer your bias strips will be. So if you want long strips, you need wider pieces of fabric. Shorter strips, you'll have more seams that you have to join them together. To cut on the bias, you will then fold up so that you have a 45-degree angle. Then, most of the time, you'll have such a large piece of fabric that you'll need to fold it one more time. So I fold it in half, then I'm going to fold it one more time so it's going to fit my ruler. The edge that I'm going to be cutting is right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my ruler along this fold, and I'm just going to trim off the excess edge here. So that's just getting a straight edge. This is excess and goes away. You're then going to measure whatever distance you want for your bias strips. For the pillow, I was using 2-inch strips. They probably could be smaller, but this is an easy way to see. So I'm cutting 2-inch strips. So I've lined up my 2-inch mark along here and then cut, and then I will have bias strips like so. And notice how much they stretch. So these are perfect for curved edges, curved corners. You're now ready to sew your strips together, and you want the strips to be sewn so that the angle of the seam is on a diagonal. This will reduce the bulk. The easiest way to do that, aside from trying to figure out what angle to cut, is to actually lay your strips right sides together so that they're exactly perpendicular to each other, so that they're going to be a square angle. Then you're going to sew from this point to this point. So you'll line up that V with the needle in the down position, and you'll get it positioned so that when you're sewing, you're going to come off right on that other side of the V. Again, you're going to lay your strip right side up. Your new strip will lay right side down at an angle, and you're going to sew from this outside edge to here. So you'll pivot, put the fabric in so that it comes into that V, and then you'll sew straight to the next V. When you get done sewing your strips, they should look like this. You will then trim off the excess fabric so that your seam allowance is 1/4 inch. So you'll trim that down, and then when you go to your ironing board and open this strip up, you'll want to press that seam open. And when you open it up, it should be nice and straight on the top and the bottom. And you'll open that seam up over at your ironing board and press it flat. Now that you have your bias strips all sewn together so that they'll fit around the circumference of your pillow, you'll then want to put piping on the inside. So you get the same amount of piping as you have bias strips, and you'll lay it in the center and fold it over. I do have a trick for this using 505 spray, so I'm going to show you that next. So I've laid my strip into a cardboard box, and it's wrong side up, and then I'm just going to lightly spray. I've lightly sprayed my wrong side of my bias strip, and then I'm going to lay the piping down the center of that section that I sprayed and just tap it down, and then I'll work my way down the strip by folding it in half, and then that edge will stick together. The 505 spray is repositionable, so if it isn't stuck where you want it, you can reposition it, but you just work your way down the strip and fold it in half. This is kind of replacing pins, and you work your way the whole way down till you have the length of your cording. We've worked our way down the strip folding it in half, wrong sides together, and tucking our cording on the inside of that. And we used a temporary spray adhesive to hold it in place. If you don't want to use the spray adhesive, you could use an acid-free glue stick. That will work the same. It launders and will come off when you're finished. So what you would do is you would just apply a small amount of glue along the edge and then push it down to hold that in place. So I've worked my way down the strip, applying it with either a glue stick or an acid-free spray. And then sometimes the edges aren't quite even, so I want to trim those down so that they're even. The tool that I'm going to use to trim down the cording is an add-a-quarter ruler. The add-a-quarter ruler has a lip along one edge so that it can butt up against a bulky edge. So what I'm going to do is line that lip up against the cording and squish it down, and then I'm going to trim. What this will allow me is to trim even from the edge of the cording so that when I go to sew, I have a nice straight edge to work from. So I'll work my way down the strip, butting up the lip against the edge of the cording and trimming. I'm now ready to attach my cording to the front of my pillow. So in this example, this was my quilted pillow version. If I did just a solid fabric or strips of fabric, this would be my pillow front here. So I'm going to attach the cording to the edge of the pillow, and this edge is unfinished. So I'm going to pull that in, and where I'm going to start, I'm going to leave a couple of inches hanging off, and I'm going to line up my nice even cut edge and start pinning or clipping so that it goes around the whole edge of the pillow. When I get to the corner, I'm going to just slightly tuck that in and just round it just a tiny bit. Because I've cut that strip on the bias, it will round nicely. I've clipped all the way around. When I come to the point where I've started, I'm going to pull this one down out of the way, and then I'm going to lay this one over top and pull that down. And when I sew across it, I'll sew across these two angles coming off the edge of the pillow. We're going to get ready to sew next. We're going to either use a zipper foot or a cording foot. Let's look at two specialty presser feet that can be used for attaching piping or cording. The one on the left is a zipper foot. So this foot is designed to sew in zippers, sew along edges of fabric that have a bulk on one side or the other. So this would be a great foot to use for this. You can move your needle over so that it's close to the cording and sew very close to it. The other option would be a cording foot. So this is foot number 12C. On the bottom of the foot is a large channel or groove. You can put your cording inside that groove, and then you have this opening here to move your needle so that you can get first maybe a basting stitch on the far right and then get closer and closer to the cording on each step. So I'm going to show you each of those in action. Right now I have the zipper foot attached. When you sew with a zipper foot, you either put the zipper foot on the left or the right hand side for other brands of machine. For a Bernina, you actually move the needle position. So on this machine, I move the needle position to the left. So it is almost all the way to the left. So when you're sewing a straight stitch, the needle will be swung to the left. You're going to line it up along the edge of the cording and sew it into place. The other feature that's great for this is needle down. When you come to the corner, you're going to work your way holding the piping in place and basting it in so that it doesn't shift underneath. Again, you're going to use needle down, pivot slowly, lift your foot, and move on to the next stitch. When you're using the cording foot, you will also move your needle position, but on this foot it has a nice big channel for the cording to sit in. And I want to move my needle to the seam side of the cording. So I'll position the cording in the foot, drop the foot, and then I will move my needle position so that it is on this machine to the far right, so it's on the seam side of the cording. I'll then work my way around the edge of the pillow using the channel to feed the cording in and watching the raw edge of the fabric line up with the raw edge of the cording. I now have my cording around the whole top of my pillow using either a zipper foot or a cording foot. So the cording is attached to my pillow front. We'll next work on the back of the pillow, installing a zipper. You're now ready to make the pillow back. This is the pillow back that I have already prepared for my pillow. It has a zipper installed in it. When you're thinking about a zipper, you're going to want that one that is 18.5 inches or longer. And so I have some zippers by the yard. I'm going to cut off a piece that is plenty long enough, probably 19.5 to work with, and then put a zipper pull on it. So this is one choice. Also, zippers by the yard come in lots of fun colors, and you can mix around the pulls. So on this example, I've put a pink pull onto a green zipper, or vice versa, or you can keep it matching. I'd like to show you how you can put a zipper pull onto zippers by the yard. At one end of zippers by the yard, you have an end that has just a little bit of space that doesn't have the coils of the zipper. So this is a pretty easy end to slide on your pull. You slide on the left side, and then you'll put on the right side. You'll then even it out. You'll make sure that the teeth are separated for just a little bit, and then when you go to slide the zipper into place, you'll hold the back of the zipper tape, and then you just slide it right into place. I'll also show you how to do it when you have a blunt end or you don't have this to start off with. When you have a blunt end without the slide on, like I showed earlier, you want to separate the tape for a couple of inches. Then you're going to cut just the coils off one side. I always choose the left-hand side. So I just cut up the coils, and then I cut probably about 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch of just the coils off. The tape is still remaining. You'll then take the rounded end of the zipper, which is the top end, versus the bottom end of the zipper, which is straight across. So the rounded end of the zipper will go on to the right-hand side of the zipper, and that is the side that still has the coils on it. Once you have the zipper onto the one side of the tape, you'll then slide the other side into the top channel at a 45-degree angle. Once you've got that inserted into the top of the channel, you'll pinch the back of the tape to hold them both in place, and then gently pull on the zipper to put it onto the tape. For the pillow back, I have two pieces that are 18.5 inches wide and 9.5 inches tall. I also have a zipper that is at least 18.5 inches wide. So I've got that piece prepared. I'm then going to overlock the edges of each pillow back piece. So I'll do it on this piece and I'll do it on that piece. You could also use a zigzag stitch to finish that. Now that I've finished the edges of both these pieces of fabric with my overlocker or with a zigzag stitch, I'm ready to insert the zipper in between these two pieces of fabric. That will be my pillow back. We'll insert the zipper along the top edge of this fabric. So I will lay the fabric right sides together with the right side of the zipper. That means the zipper pulls will be down facing the right side of the fabric. I'll then put on my zipper foot and move my needle over. When you come close to a zipper, if it's going to be in your way, what you do is you sew a little ways, let the needle drop into the fabric, then lift your presser foot to give yourself some room and slide the zipper pull out of the way so that it's now behind your work. Then you can drop your foot and continue to sew. and press the fabric away from the zipper tape. Then I'll top stitch to hold those layers flat. I've pressed my zipper away and my fabric is nice and flat, and now I'm going to use the zipper foot to do some top stitching. I'm just using it as a guide, so the edge of the foot is going to run along the edge of the fabric and my needle is still on the left-hand side. This will hold the zipper down in place on the back side, and I'll have some nice even top stitching to keep it all flat. You're now ready to sew the other piece of the fabric to the other side of the zipper. The right side of the fabric will touch the right side of the zipper, and you will sew all the way down. I can feel the lump of the zipper running along the edge of the zipper foot. You'll now press and top stitch along the other side, and your pillow back will be done. The next tip I have for you is to sew over each end of the zipper, making sure that the zipper pulls are inside that stitching. This will prevent you from pulling off your zipper pulls because you have taken off the stop if you've used zippers by the yard. We're now ready to finish the pillow. This pillow front is basic fabric, and I don't have piping on this one. But the first thing that you're going to do is smooth out your pillow, and you're going to lay it right side up. Then you will lay the pillow back that has the zipper, so this one has the zipper, right side down. Before you do that, you want to make sure to open up the zipper slightly so that you have an opening to pull the pillow through. You'll lay those right sides together, line up all the raw edges, and you will sew around it using a generous 1/4 of an inch seam. For the pillow with the piping, you will lay this right side up with your piping already basted around the edges, and then your zippered piece right side down, and you'll line up all the raw edges. For this one, you're going to use your zipper foot to sew around the edges. Let's zoom in to take a closer look. My needle is swung to the left-hand side. I'm using a zipper foot, and it's running along that piping that I've already basted onto my pillow front. I will then work my way around the edge of the pillow, pulling my pillow back so that it lines up with the raw edge of the pillow front. When you come to the zipper, you'll want to sew slowly over the zipper so that you don't break a needle. When you come to the corner, you'll want to pull away the raw edge and make sure that piped edge is fully away from your seam allowance. You'll then cover up that piped edge and hold it in place, doing a stitch at a time and making sure that all things are aligned. When you get close to that corner, you'll slightly pivot. So I'm getting close. I'm going to do a small pivot, sew a couple of stitches, another small pivot, couple of stitches, and this allows me to stay nice and close to that piped edge. I'm now coming around to where I started the pillow, and I have my overlapped piping. That edge is going to get cut off with scissors, and my piping is already attached. I'll cover that up, and then I'll sew gently across that and go backwards to secure it. Once you've sewn around the entire circumference of the pillow, you'll open up your zipper so that you can easily get inside, and you will turn it right side out. Once you have your pillow turned right side out with your beautiful piping, you'll smooth it out, flip it over, open up your zipper so that it's easy to insert your pillow form. This is an 18-inch pillow going inside. I'll stuff it into the corners first. Then stuff the other corners in. Flatten it out. Zip up your wonderful zipper. And voila! Let's finish the other pillow without the piping. I'll lay the fabrics right sides together, line up the raw edges, and I'll sew all the way around using a generous 1/4 inch seam. Again, when I sew over the zipper, you want to slowly sew over the zipper so that you don't break a needle, and you can also secure your stitches by going backwards. Then you'll go around the entire pillow. I'll show you how to pivot a corner. When you get to the corner, you'll stop so that you're a seam allowance width away from the new side. Have your needle sunk down into the fabric, lift your presser foot, pivot, and then start sewing down the new side. Thanks for joining me today. In part 1 of our video, we learned how to do machine applique and free motion quilting and quilting with our walking foot with the Quilter's Gonna Stash pillow. In part 2, today we learned how to make an 18-inch finished pillow. We also added some fun piping with cording and a zipper on the back of our pillow. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We have lots of other great videos. This is Jenny from the Sewing Palace in Helena, Montana. Bye-bye!